So we went away for the weekend recently, and so that meant a lot of eating out. We also had dessert because dessert is essential, so we had chocolate ice cream and popcorn. And before going to the wedding, I was a bit nervous, but definitely not nervous like in the past, because in the past I would restrict, but I definitely didn't do that this time. I got a big halloumi burger beforehand, which I'm really glad I did, because although the wedding food was very pretty and nice, it wasn't very filling, so I'm really glad I had a lot for lunch, or at least a decent sized lunch. So I didn't have a great day earlier this week. It was just very, very stressful. Lab stuff, not going well. Don't need to talk about that more. Anyway, so I decided to bake these double chocolate chip biscuits, which I really love, of course, because they have chocolate. So I did some therapeutic baking, which was lots of fun. It was actually really difficult to mix. It took a lot of strength. And then I had to roll out the biscuits, which was quite boring, to be honest. A good reason to have kids, really, so that they can roll out the biscuits. Okay, not a good enough reason. They turned out pretty well, so I'm happy with them. They're almost all gone now. So I read an article recently in the newspaper, which is normally a bad idea to read stuff in the newspaper. But anyway, so I read an article in the newspaper recently and it annoyed me. Well, actually 2 articles, and I posted on my Instagram about this as well. So the front page was about how at the moment there is a crisis in eating disorder treatment, so a lot of people have eating disorders and they can't get treatment. And then later in the same newspaper there were these articles, there was the food section that comes out on a Monday, and there were these articles about making this guilt-free dessert and kind of promoting restrictive diets as well. And they shared extracts from recipe books of people who were gluten-free and dairy-free and meat-free and all that sort of thing. And it annoyed me that the newspaper had on one hand acknowledged the crisis for the eating disorder crisis, but then on the other hand further into the paper was kind of assigning moral value to food, which is a big which can contribute to people's eating disorders, or is quite a disordered way of thinking about food, because food doesn't have moral value, and when you assign moral value to food, that's a really dangerous way of thinking. So I was thinking about this last night as I was trying to sleep and couldn't, and the food you eat doesn't make you a good person. If you eat a salad, you're not a better person than someone who eats French fries. And I don't believe that there are any I don't believe there are any foods that should make you feel guilty. If you eat chocolate brownies, you shouldn't feel guilty. Just like if you eat grapes, you shouldn't feel guilty. Food shouldn't make you feel guilty. It's just food, and all foods serve a purpose, the primary purpose being energy. I mean, food is how we survive. It's not something that should make us feel guilty, because everyone needs food. Basic need.
Even cats need food.
It's true, even cats need food. Hey, Rascal. I need food too. Meow meow. She didn't like that. But when we have an eating disorder, we can tend to think that a certain food is good or bad, or safer than eating other foods. But there is no food that is good or better or safer than any other food. I think when food is assigned a moral value, it signifies what society values or what you value, and eating disorders definitely mess with our value systems, I think. For example, my eating disorder had me valuing thinness above everything else. Physical appearance and the feelings of numbness that I got from my eating disorder, thinness, they were all things that I valued when I was sick. But the important thing to remember is that I was sick, and those weren't my authentic values. They were the values that they were just the values that showed up when I was unwell. At that time, I knew those were not the values that I wanted to hold close as well, and I was embarrassed about them, so I wouldn't tell people that my value was thinness. But the way that I acted showed that I did value thinness above everything else. Like, I would skip social events and gatherings to work out, to avoid eating the food that might be there, which showed how much I valued being thin over my relationships and my friendships, over new opportunities, over education. I would miss classes to exercise, all sorts of things that I would not do now that I am well. The way I acted revealed what values I was living, if that makes sense, back then. And I weighed myself and I body checked as well because I was that concerned with thinness. Now that I'm much more well, I don't have that cognitive dissonance that I experienced when I was living with my eating disorder, because I can live within my authentic value system. When I lived with my eating disorder, I knew that I should value my friendships and my relationships and my education and my health, but instead I continued down the path of my eating disorder, living in a way that did not align with my true values. But now I act in accordance with my true value system. I prioritize my friends and my family, my community, health, and I value kindness and curiosity and respect and authenticity. Physical appearance no longer plays any part in my value system, and neither does food. I think that sometimes these articles that talk about guilt-free foods and snacks, etc., sort of tend to suggest that, for example, if someone eats a salad or if someone eats these foods that society deems healthy, that person values health. But we know that health is so much more complicated than simply eating a salad or French fries or whatever. For anyone with an eating disorder, eating fries or cake or donuts is likely to be the healthier option than eating a salad or something that could be potentially restrictive. Health is very individual and personal, and you can't tell if someone is healthy from what they're eating, and you can't tell if someone values health from what they're eating. All foods can contribute to health. So this topic also had me thinking about vegetarianism and veganism, and if someone is vegetarian or vegan, does that make them a better person than someone who's not? I don't think that someone who is vegetarian or vegan or plant-based or whatever is a better person than someone who isn't. The morality or the goodness of a person is so much more complicated than what we eat, and I think it's a very black and white lens to view someone as good based on what they're eating. And when we have eating disorders, we often have a very black and white perspective. So it's important to remember that Morality has to be judged holistically. And probably everyone has slightly different perspectives on what morality is and what makes someone moral or good. I appreciate people who are kind and curious and respectful of others, open-minded, and what people eat doesn't come into it. That's not how I perceive someone as moral or not. I guess if you feel like eating something or not eating something makes you a good person or not, then I encourage you to think about your value system. What are your true values? What values do your actions suggest are important? Do they align? It can feel really uncomfortable when you are not living in accordance with your true values, but if you want to live in accordance with your true values, then recovery can probably help you get there. Now I am living within my authentic values. I feel much more at peace with myself. Oh, thank goodness. So, thanks for watching, and remember to eat all the foods, because there is no such thing as a good food or a bad food. All foods are just foods, and that's all. Okay, lots of love, bye. Hello, hi, hey, hello, help,